Prime Minister Modi has concluded his historic visit to Ukraine. But what are the key takeaways from this visit? Joining me to discuss this further is Ajay Bisaria, former diplomat, who has served as the High Commissioner to Canada and has also served as an ambassador to Poland. Thank you, Mr. Bisaria, for speaking to NDTV. My first question to you, what according to you are the key takeaways from this visit?
I think it's an important visit which demonstrates a new phase in Indian diplomacy, which is the phase of a peacemaking experiment, which means India is willing to take risks for peace. India is willing to step out and be able to have a conversation with two warring parties. And India is willing to have a multi-aligned conversation with the rest of the world for an objective which is in India's interests, which is in the interest of the global South, which is in the interest of the world. So I would say that this is an example of a successful and proactive approach to peace diplomacy to serve India's objectives.
Prime Minister Modi's remark that India is not neutral but is siding with peace as far as the Ukraine conflict is concerned, how do you analyze this statement?
I think it is certainly a step forward. It is certainly a move that is different from the past. Peacemaking has several graded steps. So when PM Modi speaks to the leader of Russia and the leader of Ukraine, that is also an attempt at peacemaking. When he visits them in their homes, that is an attempt at peacemaking. And when he offers makes the offer that if both parties require India to play a role, India could play an even greater role in peacemaking. I think that takes it to the next level. So I think it is a newer, unfamiliar phase in Indian diplomacy where India is willing to experiment with peace diplomacy. India is willing to take greater risks, and all for a good cause that serves India's interests as well as the interests of the global South.
In fact, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has said in his briefing that there are multiple ways of resolving the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Realistically speaking, what is the best outcome we can expect as a result of this visit?
Well, I think it's important to manage expectations. This was not a visit to resolve the conflict. This was a visit to prod both parties, or let's say in concert with the visit the PM made to Moscow last month, to prod both parties to get into direct negotiations to find peaceful ways of settling the problem. In the best case scenario is that, after at some point of time, the two warring parties decide to get onto the negotiating table. One of the things India could do, for instance, in the next phase, is to offer a platform and invite delegations from both Russia and Ukraine to India and say that you could come to India, we'd give you a platform and have a conversation about peace whenever they're ready. But it's important that in this role, India waits for the two sides to be ready. But at this moment, what Modi has done is gone to Moscow, gone to Ukraine, and conveyed that, in our view, the solution is not in a battlefield, it's in dialogue and diplomacy, and we encourage you to take that route.
Was this a more difficult time to go to Ukraine than Prime Minister's visit to Russia? Like you have written in your article how this visit is taking place at a time when the conflict has escalated. So how do you analyze the timing of this visit?
It was more challenging because it's closer to the war zone. And, there are sirens going off in Kyiv, even as the Prime Minister was there, even before his presence there. So, but the thing about wartime diplomacy or war zone diplomacy is there's never a good time. There's never a good time to drop into a war because, it might escalate at any time. You decide on the timing of visits well in advance, and there could be an unforeseen escalation, as we saw. In my assessment, what we are seeing for the last 2-3 weeks, the move by Ukraine to get territory in Kursk in Russia, and the steady moves that Russia is making to get territory in eastern Ukraine, in the Donetsk region, all both probably signify that both countries are looking to strengthen their negotiating position when, as and when they sit for negotiation. So they have each other's territory to exchange. They have each other's prisoners to exchange. But at this point of time, that is something that the two warring parties are calculating. That's not India's business. What India is saying is, all we are suggesting is, please sit down and negotiate. Don't keep fighting.
The fact that Prime Minister Modi has been able to visit Russia and Ukraine almost back-to-back in the same year, how does this improve India's leveraging strength vis-a-vis the West?
I think often by itself, India is dealing with the West. There's enough leverage with the West to begin with. There are, common interests. Even if you look, for instance, at the Quad, there is a common China challenge that the countries deal with. So you don't need additional leverage. But what I have argued is that a move such as this gives you additional diplomatic space to practice your strategic autonomy. If you are dealing with both the warring parties, instead of endorsing the position of one against the other, if you are involved in peacemaking or encouraging peace, then you have a better position to explain your dealings with each one of them. So I think it helps India's approach to either party. There is a greater understanding in the world if the conversations with both parties are for encouraging them to peace rather than endorsing their point of view of the world. And apart from that, it serves multiple other objectives for India, including serving as the voice of the global South, which is being disproportionately impacted by this war and other global conflicts. And, India is well placed to place those concerns before the warring parties.
Do you see this visit in any way denting India's ties with Russia?
Well, I would imagine that there won't be any difference to India's ties with Russia, because Russia and India understand each other well. I am sure, my assessment, I don't have inside information, that these issues would have been discussed in a general way with Putin. And he and the Russians would be aware that India will make an attempt at solving the problem. And I think the India-Russia relationship is strong enough to take that. Just like the Americans didn't really like Modi's hug of Putin, Putin may not like it if India's Prime Minister embraces Zelensky. But the point is, in this world, they will accept that India is being an honest broker and playing an honest diplomatic role, and they would accept it.
According to you, Mr. Bisaria, what is the most telling image of this visit?
Well, you're a TV channel, and the optics are often important. And I think it is an important issue that, for me, that the Prime Minister puts his arms around Ukraine's leader and gives him some comfort when they watch some very disturbing visuals on the deaths of innocent civilians, innocent children. And I think that is, to me, the defining image of the visit, that the tragedy of war that visits ordinary people. is there for leaders to see and understand. And I think for India to highlight that is a good thing.
Also very significant to note is that Prime Minister Modi's visit to Ukraine was preceded by his visit to Poland, the first by an Indian Prime Minister in 40 years. Now, you have been a former ambassador to Poland. What would you say was the significance of this visit?
Is visited at the level of the Indian executive. That is positive. It also means India's increasing its footprint in an important part of Europe, which is Central Europe, often called the New Europe. So taken together, both the visit to Poland and the elevation of that relationship to strategic partnership and the visit to Ukraine, which was peace diplomacy, shows that India is interested in Europe and taking steps towards increasing its footprint there.
Mr. Ajay Bisaria, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV.